Hello, everybody. I am John Dietz here with a very special 50th episode of Kube First Live. That's a big milestone. It's great to be here with our good friend Engin Diri from Pulumi. We're going to talk about some GitOps, some promotion stuff, some Pulumi stuff. But before we get into all of that, I wanted to take a quick second to acknowledge my MC, my dear Fred, not here again this week, but I promise next time he's back in 2 weeks. He's been on a very, very well-earned break, and I hope that he's having a fantastic rest. Fred, when you're back and you're watching the show, I know you will. We miss you, buddy, but I got the show. I almost know how all these buttons work by now, so but man, we'll welcome you back with open arms. Every time Fred leaves, I always recognize exactly how much he's doing for us. So, but enough about my buddy Fred. Engin Diri, let's get to you. Who are you? Please introduce yourself.
Yes, thanks for inviting me, and it's a pleasure to be here. And unfortunately, I cannot talk now with Fred, but we'll catch up with this one. And my name is Engin Diri, and some people may know me. I work at Pulumi. We do infrastructure as code. So naturally, there's many touch points here with the whole Kubernetes ecosystem, obviously. And so I'm working as a customer experience architect. So mainly working when the customer's already signed. And then when people tell to me like, hey, can you describe your job? I always say, hey, I'm the Mary Poppins of Pulumi, doing a little bit of everything, be it workshops, be it architectural reviews, or getting feedback, or even when something doesn't work. I mean, hey, this sometimes happens also, that you're also the person's the first contact that people just can also give feedback like, oh, this doesn't work, and so on, and then getting engineers to work on it and so on. So yeah.
A man of many hats. You would make a fantastic CEO. So let's get first into Pulumi, if we can. Pulumi, so our audience, obviously the folks that are familiar with Kube First, we're a very GitOps and Terraform-centric IAC shop. We've started to explore a little bit of different IAC technologies and covered a little bit of Crossplane, and just wanted to just kind of touch on Pulumi. It's obviously one of the big IAC options that are popularized in the cloud native space. What's the story with Pulumi? For thinking in terms of somebody that has like a Terraform mentality, which a lot of us do, what is it that Pulumi is doing that's different than Terraform, maybe better than Terraform, maybe just architecturally relevant details? Give me your pitch.
Yeah, that's absolutely very good, because this is also one of the questions people ask us when we're at the booth, for example. Last year at KubeCon Salt Lake City, for example, this is one of the questions. Hey, what are you folks doing? Why should I'm as a Terraform user, why should I consider you? So, and there's, of course, it's really big stuff, like you could go into details and so on. But I always say, okay, let's zoom out into the 10,000 miles bird eyes view and say, okay, what's the most obvious differences between a product like Pulumi and Terraform or other tools in the space? Is that we try to leverage generic programming languages. So you could use, if you're already using Python, or you're using Java or JavaScript types, whatever, you can take this knowledge with you, and the whole tool chain you already have in place, because you use them also to deliver business value through your application. You can now use to also define your infrastructure and deploy your infrastructure. And now comes the thing where people start to think about and say, yes, of course, I don't go into the risk to learn something new. I don't need to learn maybe a specific syntax, specific domain, specific language, and all the stuff, and getting new tools on board. I could just, and now comes the air quote, just leverage my existing knowledge. Of course, you have to delete off the equation that you still need to know what the cloud is doing. So you still need to know what a subnet is. Even if you're using your favorite Python language, it will still you need the understanding, okay, a subnet, a VNet, and all the stuff. This is how it's set up. But if you take this out of the equation, then you say, okay, using, for example, Go to create my infrastructure because my whole tool chain is optimized on Go works. We also, and now comes the interesting part, we also support YAML. So we have also a lot of folks who are like, hey, we like the ecosystem. We are currently on X, Y, Z, and so on. But we like the ecosystem. We like the lore of Pulumi very much, but I'm not a developer. And for this, for example, hey, we have YAML. You can use Q. You can use KCL, for example, if you add something on top of it. And then you're also good to go. So last workshop I did last week in Belgium at a config management camp, I think from 13, 14 participants, 6 of them choose YAML. And they achieved a same approach. Maybe they could not use a loop or this kind of structural elements. They had to use them if they want to continue this. Maybe, how do you say this, KCL to keep their YAML also dry. So that's that's.
Gotcha. And with the with like a YAML based implementation, is that to say that the Pulumi command line interprets the YAML, or is there like an operator? How does the YAML get into the Pulumi system and become infrastructure as code?
We have both. You will see later in my demo part of the Kargo, which is the topic. I'm using the Pulumi Kubernetes operator. And there I completely write the Pulumi program in YAML and then deploy it. So that's one way. Or if I still using, for example, the CLI approach, I can also write the YAML, the Pulumi YAML program, and let the Pulumi CLI and the engine interpret this also on my CI system, on my local machine. Yeah.
That's really neat. I'm excited to get a live demo later on that. The crossplane story that we have today is one that sort of solves the how do you turn Terraform into a control plane story. So we use this Terraform provider in crossplane in order to basically allow us to GitOps our infrastructure. And I imagine that's very similar to sort of the mentality that you're going to be showing us today on a Pulumi operator implementation. Is that right?
What I mean, this is something I also do. For example, we have many customers or many people coming and say, hey, we use GitOps, we use Argo, for example, to deliver everything on the clusters. How does Pulumi fit into this? So what we do is then we prepare every infrastructure and then make the bridging to say, okay, we prepare everything. And I personally always like to install, for example, Argo CD in the minimal version and then point to the app folder to say, okay, now it's going to self-manage this, so you can now reach out. So you separate a little bit the ignition. I always have it like Castaway when he made fire, to say, okay, the fire starting you do with Pulumi and keep the infrastructure in sync on this world, but everything which goes to the cluster and will then managed via GitOps, for example, you can do via then the apps pattern, application sets, and whatever you want to use. Yeah. Or if you use the Pulumi operator, you could even then also manage this infrastructure and bring it home like you would do also on a cross-plane starting controller, and then you say also now it's managed by cross-plane, the thing I had it to also Firestart. So yeah, I think there are good approaches for this on how to start it and how to keep it still as code.
That's really neat. So obviously Pulumi, building infrastructure, check. I understand both of those. Kargo is a bit of a interesting detail in this storytelling, because Kargo, as I understand it, in fact, in our last episode, we had some folks from the Argo project on to talk about their new GitOps promoter, which feels very similar in my mindset to what Kargo does that Acuity has produced. But that's sort of thinking of it more in terms of application delivery, GitOps. How do you get your app from development to staging? What, that part of the software delivery story. But you have somehow managed to get Pulumi and the Kargo application to do some kind of infrastructure story with promotion. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's again born out of my role at the company, that we try for our customers to identify potential new tools or potential solution which makes absolutely sense, especially for the customers who say we are completely in the GitOps ecosystem. So what I did when Kargo was announced last year, I think there was only CodeFresh released environments around the same time from Kargo. So it started now with the whole how to promote between different environments. I know there were different projects like the Argo image update. There was some things going on, or people do Argo workflows and stitch something together. But most of the time, what I also saw at my place and the company I worked before was this huge CI kung fu things going on how to promote from one place to another. Everybody had their own stuff going on. And it was a little bit chaotic. The things you saw, they worked. So no judgment there. We listen, we don't judge. So that was fine as long as it's work. Everybody has a solution on this. So when Kargo was coming up and promised here completely being GitOps, everything in GitOps, I found it very interesting. So version 0.1. And now with the version 1.2 they really made some progresses and adapted some feedback from the community back again. So when you use it now to when I started, it's again made some big improvements. But yeah, and that's why I evaluated it. And I'm using it obviously for infrastructure and not for application delivery. So there will be no checking for some healthy endpoints on whatever and then automatically rollback or something like this. Currently, it's really like, okay, let's promote our infrastructure using GitOps to different stages.
Man, well, you are my kind of guest. We're going to cover infrastructure. We're going to get into GitOps. We're going to talk about promotions. That's almost everything. And we're going to do it all on top of Kubernetes. Sign me up. I don't have anything to demo on our side. We do anticipate having Kargo on the KubeFirst open source GitOps catalog very soon. It's not yet in the main branch, so I can't show anything in that regard yet. So if it's okay with you, I would love to throw the screen over to you, and maybe you can just walk us through a little bit of these product integrations.
Let's do this. And again, for everybody watching this, I'm not working for Acuity, or I'm not with the Kargo project deeply involved, except I'm using it. So if you want to know more, I think there's a link, John. You can, perfect. There you can see all the updates going on. Okay, so let me share my screen and do I have slides, because I have an enterprise background. I need to have slides because otherwise I feel
of course, you would feel underprepared without them.
Yes. So showing up without slides at the time when I worked in enterprise was like, do you even did something? So of course I brought my slides with me. So let me share my entire screen. Okay. Do you see my screen?
We're looking good. Thank you.
Okay, then let me also. And the slides are also visible?
The slides, I've got 5 circles. Does that sound right?
Okay, perfect. That's the official test screen. I don't know, do you had this in the States when there was no TV program that they showed this kind of
it was a little bit different, but we did have something similar.
Yeah. We had also, I mean, this is from Fallout, but there's in Germany, we had also something like this in the morning. Okay. Subject, as we mentioned before, progressive infrastructure delivery using Kargo and Argo CD in this case. So that's the topic of the thing. And I always a little bit want to emphasize why we do this. So that there is a pain. So when you have, I have a daughter. When she was younger, we went for the doctor, and they always come up with this kind of number scale to say, okay, how much pain do you have? And here again, we have when we're working in our GitOps world. So 1 is no pain, and 10. Then where do we put GitOps? We put GitOps on the 10. It's not that worst anymore, to be honest. So it was a little bit more worst many years ago when I started the whole stuff around 2018 on our OpenShift clusters, when Red Hat was bundled with OpenShift. Argo was bundled with OpenShift, and Red Hat delivered this one. So everybody was like, what is this pattern? What's going on here? So GitOps can be a beast, can be difficult, and if you had to describe this, it's pretty much on the right side. We talked about myself, so again, here are some of my socials if you want to follow me and so on. Feel free. And as I mentioned, working here at Pulumi, and I love continuous everything. I don't know, John, when you started your journey, I started with cruise control on Ant. That was my first touch point to CI systems, and since then I'm completely hooked with this. Continuous everything is the motto.
Yeah, for me, it goes all the way back to I think Team Foundation server was my very first real CI system. And then Jenkins, and here we are all these decades later. And there's still Jenkins. Good for that.
We had also Team Foundation server, and they had even their own Git system. It was a little bit different, and it was wow. And I swear, I was so happy when Azure DevOps deprecated it.
Right, I know. That was a big system.
that was a pain. That was a pain. Okay, but we just mentioned about Pulumi, so I don't go on this one, which is very important. I think now with everybody more aware of licensing and so on, we are open source, so you don't need to pay us anything. And in fact, there are many customers. I'm calling customers, but many open source users, we even don't know they exist. So one day they sometimes pop up and say like, "Hey, we're using Pulumi," and we're like, "What?" But yeah, we are open source. You don't need this. We have a SaaS solution. You can go and then taking care and having some added value on the SaaS solution. And as I mentioned, modern infrastructure is code familiar language. 3 columns we have here in the system. I also mentioned this. So the left side are the languages. And then, of course, with the usage of languages, embeds itself completely into the ecosystem you're using. We have engineers who use Vim. When they screen share with me and they open their Vim, I'm like, wow, that's difficult. I'm an IntelliJ user, so old school Java person. So I'm not sure if we support Eclipse, but it should be also possible. Ecosystem in the middle, which is very important. So you can do literally everything end to end from your GitHub account to deploying on every cloud provider. And then again, Pulumi is not inversive in your system, so you can execute this whatever you have from the Kubernetes operator up to the classical groovy Jenkins files. Everything is possible. Okay, so with this out of the way, GitOps, that's the name of the game. So we love GitOps. That's what we really do, and it makes our life easy. So here comes the point, just to remind ourselves when we talk now about the GitOps again. Maybe some of you watching this are like, "Oh, I already know this," but it's always good to have a little refresher. If we would be now in the room with everybody, I would really ask the audience now to say, okay, if you are like this, then please tell me the GitOps principles. So declarative, of course, versioned and immutable, pulled automatically, and continuous reconciled. Because we divide here now and say, okay, when we talk about GitOps in this context, we talk about GitOps on Kubernetes clusters. Because there's also some GitOps work you can say, okay, some of the things apply which are not on the Kubernetes cluster, where you may have to create some automatic cron jobs to keep the things reconciled and so on. But here on our Kubernetes cluster, we completely go this way. So, and now comes the point. So to deploy infrastructure with GitOps, obviously we also need operators. So here a short thing about operators to say, okay, how does an operator work without going into details and what SDK for use for operators. So we have the operator, which provides an extension and custom resource. It creates a custom resource definition, makes it available for the user. The user can then use the custom resource to define something like a Postgres database or a Kubernetes cluster or whatever it's creating. The operator keeps watching it, reacts on any changes, any events, create, update, and so on, and then does the action for us, be it on the Kubernetes API or be it, for example, on the cloud APIs it's working on. So that's on a very, very high level how an operator works, because I'm sure you can do a whole session on operators. There's some interesting talks at KubeCon every time about operators. So the people who create operators, they're really, really good and very deep in the whole mechanism of the Kubernetes interna. So I'm always amazed when they talk. So to deploy infrastructure with GitOps, what we're going to need, I know there are many other tools, so I just focused here now on Crossplane and Pulumi. I'm sure there are other ways for other tools also you can use, but I think this makes a good representation. So let's think about this. Okay, we have our GitOps. We're going to put this now in our Git repository, our declaration, what we want to achieve. Let Argo CD do his magic, and then we see hopefully our 2 green icons on our UI. And yeah, there's our fancy guestbook or application deployed. So yeah, that's done. So we are completely happy and like, wow, that's cool. So we can. I hope this makes this visible. So yeah. It's finished, so we are good to go, and the day is saved, and we can now do something else. But then, actually, because there's always an actually person coming up, what did we achieve actually now? Okay, so in this approach, very naive, so we only synced now to a dev environment. So that could be the thing. So, but here comes the real talk again. There are more environments than dev, obviously. So we have, depending on the company you are working on, there can be a lot of environments in between because there are some regulations, or it's just the process, or this typical, that's how we do it always because XYZ has to have a look on it, and so on and so on. So that's the thing. And then you see also with Prod 1, Prod 2, we also now come into the situation where we have maybe a multi-cloud approach, or we have a multi-cluster approach, and so on and so on. So it's not everything as easy as it should be. So now comes the thing, when we talked also about this, how we're going to promote now beyond dev environment. And here comes again, and everybody please have a look and thought about your current employee or your former employee, how they did their work. You come in a situation where things getting very mystical. So everybody created something, and most of the time it's working. So you use the CI system to do some they call it CI kung fu, some very, I'm not saying crazy, but very creative ways to do this whole promoting. It's getting better, but again, in my former place, for example, what we did, we promoted the containers in Artifactory from one repository to another one, and then take care that the system account which is connected can only pull from the prod repository on the Artifactory, because otherwise, and so using CI commands for Artifactory to push to copy the artifact from the dev to the prod, and so on. So yeah, that was our creativity, but again, everybody does it differently. Yep. So comes the question now, is there not a better way to promote infrastructure changes, or to promote your changes the GitOps way? So here comes the idea of promotion patterns in game, to say, okay, what are promotion patterns? Promotion patterns describe different ways to implement environments, and they also called stages. Depends again on the context, the tool, or what are you using, like stages or environments. And then you have a typical, for example, test, staging, production, and so on with GitOps. So the question is now, how do we realize environments in GitOps? And again, this is now born from the experience, and there's also some movement. I will also talk a little bit detail about this, but the most obvious, the most easy way everybody jumps on is to say, hey, let's do environment by branches. So, and there is a thing to say, and it's not even from me, it's from people who are much smarter than me, from Kostis Kapellonis. You may or may not heard about him. He's very active in the GitOps space also. He's working at CodeFresh, and he had a blog post about this, to stop using branches for deploying to different GitOps environments. So here are some of the points why we should not use Git branches. Promoting via Git merges can cause to unwanted changes. And here comes the thing that what I'm using, and also always use Helm and Customize, are some tools which helps us to not use branches, to use a different strategy in this kind of using folders for different environments, because there are the difficulties. And here comes now one thing, I have to update this one and say, okay, it's not completely wrong to use branches when you forget about all Git flow stuff. So when you say, hey, I'm never going to merge the dev branch to main or whatever stage. They are always getting updated because we do a Helm template and we generate the manifest, and then we just push it into this dev branch, and we're not following the Git flow. I think then it's still a valid solution. So this is something you can do. And people are doing this. I'm personally not doing it because I have very good experiences here using the whole folder structure. But again, I also get feedback from people who are very happy with this approach because they completely ignore the Git flow. Because me as a developer background, you always had the feeling like, yeah, but I have to merge it back to main, or I have to do this. No, don't do this, because then you don't come into maybe some of the problems. But here, in this case, I prefer environment by folders. And also, Christian Hernandez, working at Acuity before by Red Hat, had also a nice article about this, and where he also highly suggests here to use a trunk-based development and using text for versioning and trying to avoid any unnecessary complexity. So again, 2022, a lot of changed in this, and we see that, as I mentioned, people moving also to hydrating their deployments and then pushing them to the stages. Okay, so tools, Helm, customize. Here you see now a setup. This is the setup of the demonstration I brought here to say, okay, I'm modeling now here my deployments here using the stages. I created an umbrella chart here because that's the way I want to work here. Again, opinionation from me here. Kargo is very flexible in this one. And I'm using here the folders to represent the different stages, having different value YAML files lying in it, and then influencing the different stages is, for me, a good approach to not use branches, because that works very fine. Again, that's up to you. Any questions so far, John?
No, I think you're saying a lot of the same stuff that we believe at KubeFirst, that our community is going to believe. We also experimented with, branch-based promotion patterns and found it to be more complex. When you the beauty of GitOps is that main trunk, that view of your desired state without computation, without having to think too hard. You want to know what the stuff is that's in your infra. And GitOps is great at that. And I love that about it, because without GitOps, that's a really hard problem, is just, asset inventory of your digital assets. It's a challenge if there's not a place for all the details to go. And GitOps solved that problem. And we were just like, oh my goodness, this is the greatest thing that ever happened. Yeah. But then you start to think about promotion, and it's natural to have that Git flow style mentality about it, that, well, when we go to develop, we should have a develop branch, and then only when it promotes should that merge into some form of a main, right? And we also found that to be just cumbersome, and that the directory-based approach is the most straightforward way to go about it. So I think you're saying a lot of the same things that we landed on as well.
Folks doing really good stuff depending on the tools they're using. I also saw versions of people also in the company I worked before creating a Helm chart and having different value YAMLs being there, and say, okay, that's the way. So it's also, I mean, again, there's never a right or wrong, because it depends on the maturity level of the company. At the end of the day, business is only looking at the results of it, that the values is delivered. It gets a problem when there's a problem. Then they look at what you created, But until everything works smooth and so on, they will not come to you and give you a handshake that you created a sophisticated stuff. So it should do the job, keep it simple, that people can maintain this, don't make over complication into it, and then choose the best tool. So again, you could talk on GitOps conference, you talk with 5 people, and 5 people give you different stuff because they stitch the building blocks different together. So I love it. And I know that KubeFirst has also an opinionated way probably to deliver the stuff. So that's also the nicest part, to say, okay, you can create opinionation, which are good to get you started, but maybe having also the flexibility to break out of it, to adapt this, to change it. which is also important, because otherwise we become again this ivory tower and nobody wants to work us. In my company, we called it hacking the process, because there was something not good and people really tried to hack and everybody become a special snowflake and get the approval from higher management to not use this or whatever, because they are, and they're like, no, you're not a special snowflake, you just don't contribute, or maybe the thing we provided was too rigid and or how do you say, too strict,
too constraining,
and we did and we did not listen to extend this, because this all the stuff. Okay, so then let me continue to this. I put you folks away again and share my screen, because I'm one of the persons who have only 2 screens. I should upgrade. No, so and then play from currency. Okay, so now Kargo, because we are all here for Kargo, and that's fair. You're like, oh, Engin, I don't care about what you told me. I want to see Kargo. So let's talk about Kargo. The link is also in the chat. So cargo.akui.io. So we go into the details a little bit when we start the demo, and we see also the UI, and then we can talk a little bit more. But what is Kargo and why you should care? That's the most important thing. So multi-stage promotion, that's why we're using this. We want to promote, and you will see later how you can create and model your stages and stitch them together, which is really, really fine. Everything is GitOps. So every action you see in the UI, or using the CLI, because you still have these processes where people have to click something. This is also something, for example, German companies still love very much. You can create, as I mentioned, flexible promotion pipelines of artifacts. And here comes the point, how Kargo defines artifacts. So for Kargo, artifacts are valid artifacts, are container images, Kubernetes manifests, and Helm charts. So that's where things are going, be it an OCI or be it classical on a repository. This is the way you can handle this. Manual and automatic promotion of artifacts, very, very good. You have also the possibility to attach monitoring tools, for example, Datadog or your Prometheus, to give you out some values, how your new application, when we now look into the application, how your new application is behaving, and automatically roll this back, because Kargo is using under the hood Argo rollout, and everything which Argo rollout has applies then also to Kargo. So that's very neat. And currently the integration, it's into the existing ecosystem, which is important. It supports Helm, Customize, and Argo CD. Obviously, Akuiti is also one of the big contributor for Argo CD. I'm looking forward that somebody out of the community, maybe Stefan Prodan, also contribute something for Flux. Also, that Kargo is also more native with Flux. And most important, we come again, it's open source, so you can use this. How does it work? Or on a high level again. So because now we say, okay, the distribution, the delivery, everything happens now via the CD part. So we can now reduce CI. You saw the picture from before, the whole mystical stuff going on. We can now say, okay, CI does only what CI has to do. So in this case, building the artifact, doing the testing and all the stuff it has to do, creating an artifact. In this case, it could be an image, or it could be an Helm chart, and so on. And then it comes us, we do some actions, maybe over the UI or whatever, creating some changes. Kargo watches all of them to say, okay, when there's a new artifact or we change something in our Git repository, then I need now to promote this to the different environment using then the GitOps approach. And then it will either you can connect Kargo directly to Argo CD, similar to the Argo image updater with specific tagging your application, and then it will do the changes there without looking into the Git repository. I don't like this. I did not implement this. I always like to have this everything in Git repository, or telling Kargo also do either pull requests on your Git repository, and then you can run your application set a pull request generator to do some actions. Or what I did, what I also like, is then directly going to the main, for example, because I have the separation of the stages. And as I mentioned, also it can verify that the updates is successful using some of the observability tools and then feedbacking it and then rolling it back. Whew. Okay, so long things. Let's have a look on our demonstration. So open also the Git repository. Okay, so everything is in this Git repository to play with it if you want to give it a try and say, okay, how does it work? Setting up everything, I put all the commands here in so you can install then every operator. So what I mentioned before, which is very important, I have here my infrastructure chart. This is the main Helm chart where I here in my templates repository, I have as an example, the definitions I would like to deploy. In this case, I'm using DigitalOcean, so I have the cross-plane DigitalOcean. I'm not using here now compositions or composition resource definition. I kept it here really, really simple. But again, in terms of cross-plane, you could use this. That's one way. Here, just a simple DigitalOcean application. And then the same thing goes here for the Pulumi. This is the Pulumi version of it. We have the Pulumi program, again, the DigitalOcean, and then the stack for our different environments in Pulumi world for the app in dev and prod and so on. And this is then all created as a Helm chart. As you can see here, it's version 1.11. If we do a change, you will see what I mean with this. So let's head back. We have some default values. So in my case, I have deployed the sample Vue.js application just to mimic something to say, okay, this is what we're going to roll out per default. And then we have here our stages. So my stages here consist of 5 stages. I have the UAT stage here where I do some derivations of the default and so on and so on. I can also activate and deactivate if I want to roll it out with Pulumi or with Crossplane. So again, it's just to mimic different environments and to simulate this. In Argo CD, that's how it looks like in Argo CD. Everything is nicely green and we can have a look into it and see, yeah, this one is deployed via Crossplane. It's green. That's how it should be. And the other stages, like the demo one, is via the Pulumi one, also nicely working. Let me also open DigitalOcean to have a look into this and pray that the demo gods are happy with me. So we see all the applications are also rolled out. And when we have a look into our dev stage in Frankfurt, we should see, yeah, the Go application is deployed. So let's have a look into it. Where are you? So yeah, we start with the test environment. So let's have a look into the test. And in the test, we see that we override the default. This should just simulate that there's some changes going on and so on. So think about this. I could put a branch into it, but I just opted for really different applications so that people can see something. So the test environment has the Golang application deployed, and every other environment should, if we have a look into this, come down. Let's see here. It doesn't, the UAT environment doesn't change anything. So it takes the default, which we defined. It's the Vue.js application. So when we have a look into this one, we should see then, yeah, so welcome to our Vue application. So that works fine. Okay, let's have a look into Kargo. So now we come into the thing. So I created now here a simple promotion pipeline. So we can see now, we can attach now our subscription. In my case, it's listening to the Helm chart repository on GitHub page. So here it's not a OCR stuff. I'm not pointing to a container registry. I just point here to my Helm repository, which I host for free at GitHub, and looks here for changes. And we can see there are no changes. And currently version 1.11 of the Helm chart is available and nicely rolled out on every stage. So when we click on the stage, we can see who did the promotion and which version is there. So that's really, really fine. So that's one step. Have a look shortly for the Kargo documentation. So we saw now, heading back, a subscription. We then have the so-called pattern of a warehouse. I like the naming because it's really like this whole transporting cargo stuff going on. So a freight is what we're going to deliver. Here in this case, our freight is the Helm chart in version 0.111. We see older versions because there are some other versions also on this, but it's this one here. And then we can also see same thing goes here for the freight history and which warehouse is attached. And now comes the thing what I mentioned, the flexibility with it. If we have a look now into the patterns, so as you can see, I reused the image updater a little bit to update not a container image for a classical application, but for rolling out my infrastructure Helm chart. But there are also things I could just use the config updater pattern. There are some common case here where we can create from different resources the accumulation from different subscription, roll them out, be it a Docker a container image and a config parallel pipeline. So they really created here some ready-to-use patterns. You can use here fan out. I have also a fan out here in my case, fan in. So everything is really here. Set it up to control, to roll out the stuff, multiple warehouse, as I mentioned before. So things are really cool. You can also attach different warehouses to different stages because you say, okay, the UAT one gets an additional thing. So everything is possible and you can do this. Gives you also some advices also here with the layouting, with Helm. So as you can see, I'm using the stages here with customized. So the friends really put some energy into it. And here comes the case when I started here in version 1.0 version time, it did not look like this. So I really appreciate how much energy they put into this so people can easily start. Okay, let's head to our code example and let's do something. So let's find out, let's say okay, we liked the Go application. So that makes absolutely sense for us. And then we say, okay, we should really put this into our main branch. So let me get the code here. So I don't need to do this in CI. So let's put this away and then getting a git fetch to see that nothing new comes in. So now we say, okay, we would like that every stage gets, in this case, the Golang application, because we find out that it makes absolutely sense. So now we can increase here our number and say, yeah. And now I do something everybody should look away. I'm pushing it directly to main. But there is no trigger on this or something like this. So that makes the staff or principal engineer different from our junior. We can push to main. No,
that's right. That's right. Every good demo should push directly to main.
Push directly to main because nobody wants to see you doing a pull request.
We all know how the pull request works. We do.
But hey, I would get at least a green square if I do now a pull request or something like this, so I can brag. Okay, so pushing it to main. And then we go back to our repository and go to our action. Again, we did not create anything. So here I'm also running now the creation of the chart. So this should go fairly quick. So having here our little pipeline. And I don't know, John, how it is for you, but when you do a demo, it's like Inception, like on the Miller Planet, 5 seconds in the demo is in a conference talk like 1 hour because you're like, oh my God, it takes so much time.
I know.
But actually, when you prepare the stuff, it's like, oh, that was quick. You know what I mean? I don't know. Waiting for a pipeline during at home doesn't feel the same when everybody looks at you.
I do agree. You got all the Slack messages you can read to kill the time,
Yeah, or be it honest, watch TikToks or something like this.
Right.
So that's something. Okay, but as you can see, it's fairly quick. And now we should see, yeah, so now it's deployed. And now we should also see if I click here refresh, because I don't want to wait that now that the warehouse makes the auto thing. We see, yeah, 1.12 is available. And now again, I can go either the GitOps way, define the resources in the I hope I say it right. Freight. That's a difficult word.
Yeah.
Freight. Yeah, that's I don't know. Some words in English for me as a German feels very hard to speak. So freight. So I can now here in this case promote this into the stage and say, okay, let's take out this one. So have a look into our code repo, because I mentioned that I'm going to use the Git repository. And here comes one thing which I should mention here. When we have a look now into the Kargo demo, so here we have the so-called promotion pipelines, promotion templates. And let me put this a little bit larger. So I specified here my promotion template in this case. So what I say is, hey, in our stage test, when I want to promote something, please go to the Git repository and check this Git repository out, because I get the input value. Where is it? Here. I know my freight, which I'm going to deploy, comes from the warehouse infra chart warehouse. Okay. So what does the stage have to do? The steps to actually deploy this. So there are a lot of pre-made steps you can already use. This is also a big change. So when they released version 1.0, they introduced the steps. Before it was not like this. So now you can really put up the steps, what you need to do. And I will also show this in the documentation, because that's very, very important. So let's look at the stages and see where is the step with the stages. Promotion templates. Where are you? Here, the promotion step. So we have a lot of pre-made promotion steps we can use. We can update Argo CD. We can delete something. We can clone. We can create pull requests. We can generate or hydrate our Helm chart to create a Helm template to maybe push it into, as I mentioned before, in our environment, and so on and so on. So a lot of things I can do, or just make a customized set image. This is also very great if I have a new image, because my warehouse just delivers me the latest tag of a application. So I used in my case, where are you? I used in my case, I'm cloning the Kargo test repository on the branch main. I'm updating, and here comes the thing, I'm updating the Helm chart, and we have a look also in the Helm chart, and then I'm committing it back again to the main one, because I said I'm pushing it to main because I have here a sophisticated structure. So what is this Helm update chart doing? So when we have a look now into our Helm chart, for example, for the stage, we see it has a dependency. So my whole trick here in this case, what I'm using is I'm using an infra Helm chart and put it into this umbrella chart of the stage as a dependency. So what Kargo is doing now, it's going to update this dependency and then roll out the stuff again, because now there is a change. So Argo CD will detect, because that's why I said I'm not updating Argo CD. I'm not touching Argo CD. I use everything on the Git thing. Updating the dependency is done by Kargo. There is a change now, and Argo CD will detect the change and roll out this change. So let's see how does it look like. So we go here and say, yes, please promote this. Oh, I forgot now to click on it. So again, manually, you can do this also full automatically. So now it's deployed. We see it's written. So we should see here now a push from Kargo. Yes. So Kargo made some changes. That was the Git message I put. Please use semantic Git commits. And then when we have a look into our stage, we should see now in our test environment, here, we see now 1.12. When we have a look into our Argo, we should see that there was also a change here of this. In this case, nothing, because we just changed the repository and test was already on the Git repository for Golang. So let's head to the next one and say, okay, we want to update now. We find out that the change is nice, either automatically or have some other verifications going on, because sometimes some infrastructure is not that easy to automatically verify, for example. So let's promote the next one. And we say, yeah, test worked fine, perfectly. Let's promote this to the next stage. And we should also see now here another change coming in. So in our UAT, yep, just now we see now that is also 112. And let's have a look into this one here. And yeah, we see now a change because yeah, there was actually a change. So there will be something new now roll out using, in this case, crossplane. So we see the repo clone URL changed now to sample Golang because that's what we set up. Before it was Vue, and now it's the sample Golang. And we should see also, if everything works fine, that this one, yeah, we see our deployment is currently going on. And as soon as it's finished, we hopefully should see that our Go application is deployed. So let's wait for this getting deployed. So it's still build complete and takes, because it's using a build pack here on DigitalOcean app. Could have also created a container image and put this also something in, but here that's fine. And now comes to what I said to you, John, when you wait for something to change,
the seconds turn into hours. I know.
I swear it here. It's again, why you take so much time? Why you do this now to me? Okay, so now something has deployed. That looks good. And we see now, yeah, there's 8080. So let's hope, hopefully, yeah. And the Go application is now deployed. So there is now, it works. So we really changed the infrastructure. In this case, yeah, it's a very easy thing because I wanted to show that something goes on and don't wait for 15 minutes that a Kubernetes cluster is deployed. But I think the idea catches again. So we create now different infrastructure. We can decide, we can show, we can exist in harmony with different ways of infrastructures code, because bigger companies may not only have one, so they use different teams to use different ways to deliver. I can still collect this as part of my golden path or part of my platform story, and can here deploy the stuff, and then also give people either via the UI, via CLI, or via main GitOps approaches the way to deploy the workload to different stages here. And when I end up completely here, so as you can see here, because I'm fanning out here, if I'm going to promote now the 112 to prod New York City and say, hey, when it works in New York, when you make it in New York, you can make it everywhere. And this is also here from my demo. So when New York is working fine, I just roll it out to Amsterdam and London without any further thing like, okay, now you can fan out.
Right.
So that's the thing.
Very neat. And these stages that we're looking at on screen here, how are those stages defined? That's got to be, I guess, in your GitOps repository somewhere, right?
Yeah. Let me show this. So that's a good point that you mentioned this. So I have here my Kargo demo, and let's put this in. So I showed here now the test stage. So let's close this. So, and now I can define the next stage, and it has also the promotion template.
I see. Okay.
So hopefully in the future, there is probably shown a pull request to say, okay, is there a way to keep this also dry, to maybe not replicate the promotion template and reference to a specific CR? Christian, if you watch this, then maybe you already like, oh, we have this in the future or something, or create a ticket for this one. That you create maybe also a promotion template, dedicated custom resource where you can then just reference this for parts which are equal. So in my case, yes, I'm keep duplicating because all the stages does always the same step. Clone the repository, update in the specific path. As you can see, I'm really pointing to the stage, update the Helm chart with the value from your warehouse, in my case, the Helm chart version, and then please commit this back again, and call it a day. And then you can also see the dependencies to say, okay, this one is depending on the stage before, and then you can, for example, for Amsterdam, I say prod New York, and then you can point multiple stages to one single stage and say, okay, this one is our fan out point.
Gotcha. So you never define what the next step is. You define in the next step that it depends on the prior, kind of like a DAG implemented system. Is that accurate?
Yes. There's something going on that they can create this what I model here with the different stages. You do this like on this way.
Very cool. Well, thank you for showing us that. And the user interface is beautiful. The Kargo UI is just strikingly well designed.
Absolutely, it's really, really nice. So you can you have also here the secret stuff. So I can put credentials in. So I created this, all Kubernetes credentials, Kubernetes secrets. So I created them already with my, for example, with my GitHub repository. You can push or create pull requests. So again, you can limit the scope using the access token and say, okay, my Argo Con demo project is only allowed to create pull requests on this one, and then you can create additional secrets, multi-projects user, and some CLI going still on, and
very cool. Well, thank you, Engin. That was an exceptional demo. I feel like I learned a lot about Kargo, about Pulumi. What a great resource to have on our show to sort of show a couple alternatives to what we're doing at Kubefirst. You know, obviously we got Terraform, but Terraform is not the only IAC tool in the cloud native tool belt. And Pulumi has a ton of popularity, and from an open source standpoint, it has a lot going for it. As an Apache 2 project at Pulumi, is that correct?
Let me go directly. I don't want to say anything wrong because
I know I bring out the lawyer talk and put you on the spot. Sorry about that.
No. It is. Let me have a look, because then somebody's like, no, there is a difference between and. So we using Apache 2.0. So
Apache 2.
Pulumi project is under Apache 2.0, and we make, if you say like, hey, what are you making? How you make your money? Yes, we have a SaaS solution where we offer some additional features and secret management and all this stuff. But you can use Pulumi out of the box.
Right on. And Kargo, I know the folks at Acuity are behind Kargo, but Kargo is also an open source.
Kargo
contribution. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I also check now the license to be sure that I don't say anything wrong. But it was 3 years ago, so they created the license. Apache 2.0, also Apache 2.0. So
very cool.
You are as good as go as you trust the whole open source movement.
Ecosystem,
ecosystem.
Agreed. Yeah. And I think a lot of the folks that are familiar with Kubefirst already are already familiar with sort of the process of like, you have to build in the CI world, you have to build your container, you have to build your chart, you have to get it ready to be in a publishable state. And then that's where like the CI should mostly stop, and you want CD to deliver it to your cluster. But something has to set the desired state for the environment. And so Kubefirst users are using Argo workflows for that, and we have some steps that looked just almost real similar to what's happening in Kargo, with good reason. Promotion in GitOps is surprisingly not hard. Because GitOps is hard, promotion is very simple. It's you take a value from here, you put it into one and only one spot where that defines your desired state, and then it just becomes reality or tells you what the problem is. So
that's the thing. And we always had, I mean, you had the experience also, it's not the tools most of the time. Yes, they have maybe some learning curve, but the real problem is the culture and the processes in the company, and not the tool. A tool, we always said, a tool cannot fix a broken culture. And that was really, really true, as much because We had some situations sometimes in older companies I've worked for, hopping from one to another, hoping that we able to solve this. But then you find out at a certain stage, like, no, it's not the tool. It's probably that our lame ass approval process is not the best, and so on. So, yeah,
Right.
because 10 people have to sign and so on. Because that's the way it is.
Right. You have an 8-hour deployment because you have to wait for Bob for 7.5 hours to hit approve. Right.
I mean, sometimes it was really necessary because my company before, it's a German retailer. I don't know, you have them in Washington also, Lidl, you know them.
Mm-hmm.
And they are in Germany classified as infrastructure relevant for the country because they provide food to the people. So of course they had a different regulations and have to have attention that they don't have downtimes or, because they are relevant for the country to survive. So in this case, it made sense that maybe 5 people had. And that's why I love Kargo and this kind of things, because it still offers. Because the first thing I get as a feedback when we introduced with OpenShift GitOps at the Schwarz was like, where do I sign? Because they knew it from Jenkins or from Azure DevOps that this step is waiting and you go in and you click on the button. And then they're like, where is this in GitOps? And I'm like, it's in Git, it's in your pull request. And they look at me like, you're not really thinking that we are doing pull requests, because I'm a product manager or product owner, or whatever. And they're like, yeah, you're right. That's maybe a little bit too takes time to do this. So I like that you have this interim way that you can still log in and maybe just click on it and then say approve. It gives you still the weight of control by still being GitOps native. So that's the thing I like very much, because there are some cases where you still need to have this.
Absolutely.
Hope it makes sense.
No, it makes a ton of sense.
It does. Weird German regulation stuff.
No, I think it makes a ton of good sense, and you're right. There are a ton of ways to get this solution correct, and at the end of the day, I think that there are just a lot of really great ways to do GitOps correctly. And the takeaway is GitOps, that we should all be, nodding at the table as the way to deliver and maintain that long-term desired state and asset management problem. Like GitOps just solves that really well. But there are some things, still to get right. And I think that Kargo did a really great job, just kind of laying down the foundation with a really great metaphor with the whole, cargo and freight being delivered and changing the terminology from environments to stages, particularly in a GitOps context, makes a lot of sense. The UI is beautiful. I think you guys are doing great work. And for our audience, you won't have to wait long, I'm sure, before it's on the GitOps catalog. And in the meantime, it's an open source repo, so please, contributions are more than welcome. Engin, I really appreciate you coming in with your expertise and sort of showing us your tricks on screen so that our community can have a better understanding of Pulumi and Kargo. We don't typically wrap up the show without a joke, though. And Fred always has a bad dad joke at the end of the show. And I cheated on you while you were giving your demo. I asked the robot to give me a good one. I didn't like the joke that they gave me. I'm going to hit retry one more time. So it says, why did the infrastructure as code fail to get promoted? Why did the infrastructure code fail to get promoted? Do you happen to know the answer to that one, Engin?
No.
Because it had too many staging problems.
Okay. Okay.
I won't buy a ticket to the comedian show, but it was a good try. It was a good try.
At least you tried it. The Simpsons cake meme where Bart has the "at least you tried" meme.
That's right.
That's good. But I'm also happy the demo worked. You see, this was not necessary that I'm sitting in flames and so on. So everything was fine in this case. Thanks for having me, and hope the community liked it. And feel free to reach out to me, to John, to Christian Hernandez from Acuity. I mean, he's very vocal and he's also happy to answer any questions. And yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much, Engin. Everybody, we'll be back in 2 weeks. My buddy Fred will be here, and I promise the emceeing and the banners and everything will be 2x what they were today. But thank you for joining us, and Engin, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Okay.
We'll see you, everybody.
Bye.